Hey, Vaughn.
What's up, Kim?
Merry 2 days after Christmas.
Yeah, Merry 2 days after Christmas. Exactly.
This is December 27th, I think, is the weirdest day ever. I think nobody knows what to do. And especially this week because it's on a Friday. So everyone's like, do we go to work? Do we like what do we do? It's not quite New Year's yet. So I also remember back in retail, I hated December 26th. That was like my least favorite day. But December 27th, I think might have been even worse because then it's just like everything just stopped.
Yeah.
But here we are, and welcome to everybody to But First Football. We're back after 2 weeks off, and I should have greeted you by saying Buonasera,
Right.
because all that Italian I took, I was taking Italian, I didn't use it because everybody speaks English. So every once in a while, I got in a good Buon Natale, Merry Christmas, Felt like I had to do something. But
wait. Is English like that ubiquitous within the country? Like,
yeah,
really? Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and you know what? The only language that we really spoke, James spoke Chinese to
Uh-huh.
this couple that was on the water bus in Venice.
Oh, wow.
So hopefully everybody's had some good football. I tried to, it was 6 hours ahead, and I was always like checking scores, there's no American
Right.
football.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I know that we are going to our fundamentals this week is about off-season prep,
Yep.
and anxious to hear about that because now as we get to the end of the season, when you're dealing with injuries and like
Right.
that can be season like can change everything. I just saw an alert come through that Jalen Hurts is not going to be available for Sunday. I mean, they've already clinched their spot, but um, the prep is vital, right?
Yeah,
It,
absolutely. Yeah, and now, I just thought it was appropriate with basically a little over a week left in the season, and those teams that aren't making the playoffs, they're already into their off-season prep, right? Not the players per se. That'll all come next week, but the teams, and they self scout. Everyone self scouts, and the season hasn't gone the way we wanted. And you break down every position group and you break down every player within that position group, and can this guy help us win for the future? Can this position group as constructed help us win for the future? And so teams, their personnel people have their ideas, meetings with the coaches, meetings with ownership. Hey, here's and I'm sure a little bit of it is putting a value on a whether it's a position or a group, and where those dollars will be allocated. But basically, it's like, hey, how did this guy? What kind of year did he have? Where is he in this? Is he at the end of his tail end of his career? Is he in the middle? Is he a young guy starting? Like, is maybe he's a backup? And hey, we need him to be the guy, and so we're paying a ton of money to this veteran, but we think maybe it'll be a little bit less than the performance from that veteran, but he'll have room to grow into that. And so all these decisions are being made right now, right?
so what about you know how I feel about Kirk Cousins,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean I don't feel a little bad for him
Yeah.
because that was like I mean, basically, they're done with him. They're basically saying they're done with him. There's
Yes.
still there at the time they made that decision. There were still 3 games left for them in the season. What is that like? I mean, how
Well,
awkward.
so as a player, your only security comes in your bonus guarantees, right? Because although Kirk Cousins was the first guy to kind of break that wall of having a fully guaranteed contract, and of all players to have that be the guy, Kirk Cousins, right? But he was. But for the average player, your bonuses in terms of roster bonuses and meaning you're on a roster at a certain date. If you're on the team at that date, you get your money, your signing bonus. Those are your only guarantees. And I mentioned that because his contract, although it was 150 some odd million, he had 90 million guaranteed. And typically teams are pretty sure when you are rewarded with that type of contract, it gives you the security. Hey, I'm going to be around for at least a few years, right? Now, down the end of the line, teams might be willing to kind of eat that. But so I'm wondering if maybe he hasn't maybe been super happy with the situation of being the backup, because typically teams don't just want to eat $90 million, right? And that was his guarantee, and so that's what's going to happen, because everything I'm hearing is that they're just going to let him go. They're not
Yeah.
going to, and I don't know what
Yeah.
type of trade value he may or may not have, but that's not that's pretty atypical, is what I'm saying. So
Okay. I mean,
yeah,
I thought it was. It just seemed like what a I mean, I think we all knew that was a crazy move. We can
but
go back and watch those episodes after that. And when I was going, why? Why Kirk Cousins? But and here we are, like
But I think that
so
goes back to your point. We talked about, you brought up Kirk Cousins. I said, as a player, all you need is one of these 32 teams to like me, right?
mhm.
Despite what everyone else thinks, and of course, the book is kind of written on Kirk Cousins. He's deep into his career, and he's got the one playoff win. It's kind of like, okay, we can be good enough, but Kirk is never going to really put you over the top. You're kind of going to have to, and I know the popular talk now is whether your quarterback's a truck or a trailer. Like, the trucks pull everyone with them, the trailers get pulled. And I think Kirk is kind of a trailer, but teams feel like he's competent enough, generally speaking, at least, especially during the regular season, where if we surround him with great players, then we can get to the playoffs. And then once we're in, anything can happen. But he hasn't been able to put it together in those primetime games, right? And so, um, yeah, but again, all teams are making those decisions player by player, and in some situations, as you mentioned earlier about injury, guys older, maybe he has an injury that's kept him out for a sustained amount of time. Everyone has exit meetings with your position coach, and sometimes with people up in management, and it's like, hey, well, are you, what are you thinking? Are you thinking about coming back? That doesn't guarantee you're going to be with the team, but they want to hear that you're committing to, yeah, I'm not, I'm in my 10th year. I was hurt, but I'm not done. I'm coming back to play again. Okay. Then they'll see, hey, where do you fit? And okay, well, we want this guy back because we know when he's healthy, he's a beast, but you know what? We want him back at our number. So it's not that we don't want him back, but hey, you're
Right.
going to have to, if you want to be with us, we need you to take this pay cut, right? And so
Yeah.
all that stuff is being factored in, and plus, because the fear of an older player is, perhaps he had a little nagging injury that kept him out of a couple games the previous year, and so once those injuries start happening year over year, they get concerned that, hey, the injury bug is caught up, and like this is what it's going to be, and we want to pay him for being on the field, not for being off the field, right? And so. But as a player, at the end of the year, again, we talked about teams not doing well midseason. You never want to put bad tape out there because all 32 teams get all the tape. And like I said, all you need is one team to see you think, hey, this guy can help us. So you're always playing for your job, and you always want to put good tape out there. But at the end of the year, it's like this team is never going to be configured the same again. So this
Right.
team, it's one and done for us. And so there is a little bit of sadness for, and I don't know if it hits you because you're so beat up at the end of the year, and you're just like, man, like I just want to get this miserable season behind us, forget
Yeah.
about it, heal up a little bit in the off season, and then get back to training. And hey, we're going to turn it around. Now that assumes you feel confident that you're going to be with your team and you're a contributor, right? And I fortunately was lucky enough where for 10 plus years I was in that position. Even though, of course, they bring in people to challenge you and push you and compete for a position, but I went into most off seasons feeling pretty confident that I was going to be brought back, and so you know. You miss some of your buddies, right?
Yeah.
And you never know when or who it's gonna be because in your mind, oh, this is my guy. Like, we work well together. Freddie Jones, I think I've mentioned him. He played tight end, I played tackle, so we worked
Mhm.
together all the
Mhm.
time. We were roommates, and so that was one of the ones that surprised me. It's like, oh, Freddie's my guy. Well, okay, we'll get him next year, Freddie, right? And then he was gone, right? And it's not just that him. It's there's so much turnover year to year. So
Well, just the only person who had good tape from last night's game. was the Chicago punter. That game, everyone on that field should have been ashamed. Did you watch that game? Did you see the final score? It was 6-3.
Yeah.
What?
I gotta say the NFL is not designed anymore for 6-3 defensive battles.
But I felt like it wasn't even such a defensive battle as it was just a freaking
No, right.
debacle.
No, I trust me. I know. I hear. And again, and you never want to put tape out there like that where
Oh,
people are like, hey,
terrible.
the season, they don't have anything to play for in terms of team accomplishments, but what is he like? Is he giving up?
Right.
Is his trailer packed to go home already? Right, like that type.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy.
Well,
Like it,
Seattle still had a playoff opportunity, but I mean, I guess they still do because they technically won that game. But in my mind, nobody won that game.
and I know sometimes as fans you think there's only 17 games. How can they not be up for every game? But I'm telling you, it's difficult to be at the same high level 17
Sure.
weeks in a row, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you're going to put a stinker out there. You hope you don't do it in December when you have stuff to play for, right? That's the thing. Everyone wants to be playing for that pay cut in January, right?
Well, the
So,
other game that was a big stinker on Christmas Day was the
uh,
Baltimore Houston game. But wow, did Beyonce kill it? Woo! That was worth it. That was amazing. She is incredible. And I was texting you guys, Kendrick Lamar must be freaking out. Like, wait, I'm the Super Bowl entertainment. What's she doing on Christmas being so good?
but at least he's got a couple weeks. He can up his game if he needs
He's
to.
gonna have to. He's gonna be calling Beyonce saying, "Hey, will you make a guest spot on my Super Bowl show?"
I told
That was
Madison.
so good.
I told Madison. I said if he really wants to break the internet, he should have Drake come out there.
Yeah, that you know what,
Yeah.
Vaughn, that's a good idea. And he's probably thinking about it too, because if he was watching that, he should be concerned.
But I got to tell you, Kim, I'm a grudge holder, and if you accuse me of dealing with underage girls, then we can't be friends anymore.
Yes. Yes. Well, I do understand. And I
Yeah.
kind of joke about it, but really, honestly, like that halftime show was better than many Super Bowl halftime shows that I've seen. And
Yeah.
that was the only saving grace to that game. I don't know what happened to Houston. They're like, talk
Well,
about putting out bad tape.
but
Who
but
scores 2 points?
but again, they're still in the playoff hunt.
Well, I
They're right in the
know.
thick of it.
They can win the division, I think, still,
But
right?
to be honest, I think that was a little bit more about Baltimore, which kind of that game plays into my faves a little bit. Not directly that game, but just parts of that game. So, but I think Baltimore just really just I think it could have been a lot of teams that day, and they wouldn't have had a chance the way they were just dialed in that
So
day.
I know I took us a little bit off track, but thinking about the off-season prep, so on the other side of that would be the coaching situations.
Hmm.
There's several coaching openings. They're, always talking about like the next hot guy, like what the guy in Detroit, I think Ben Carson, the OC in Detroit, like everyone's talking about him, but they can't have any of those conversations, correct? Like none of that technically can be discussed until after
Yeah,
the season,
not
right?
not not directly unless you get permission from your team, and if you're in the thick of a playoff hunt, they're not going to give you permission. But of course, stuff gets back channeled, and this guy knows this guy, and hey,
Yeah.
would you be interested? Just we want to know, would you be interested in interviewing me? Maybe not, hey, are you interested in the job? But would you be interested in interviewing? And so yeah, that stuff is going on. As a player, next week you'll get some big old plastic bags, and your locker is your home away from home. You spend so much time there, and you personalize it over the months, over the year, and now you got to clean all that stuff. You got so many pairs of shoes, gloves, everything, like, right, and so you just dump it all in, and
That is
So
sad. It's kind of like the last day of school.
yeah,
Although some people like the last day of school. My daughter always cried on the last day of school. She didn't want it to end.
yeah, and so that's what off-season prep is for, and of course that's just the preliminary. That's just the start of it all, and as you get further and deeper, the league year starts mid March. That's when everything changes. So these next few months, everything will ramp up, and teams will be
Right.
ready for sign free agent. Free agencies probably starts maybe a few weeks before the league year
Yeah,
starts.
I think it's pretty early, right?
Yeah, combine
Well,
coming up, and so
there's going to be some really interesting. There's a few teams that are just in dire straits, and the quarterback class and this draft class doesn't look to be super exciting. So
yeah.
there's going to be like it'll be interesting to see what happens to Sam Darnold. I think Minnesota would be crazy to let him go, but I get it. They've drafted their quarterback of the future. Interesting that Teddy Bridgewater was just picked up again by Detroit. I mean, like
Oh,
crazy stuff is
oh
happening right
wow.
now. Yes, he's signed with Detroit. So he retired from the NFL last year. He went to coach his former high school team in Miami
Yeah, I
this
saw
year.
that
He
Miami
took them
Northwest.
to the
Yeah.
state championship, won it, and then yesterday signed back with Detroit, unretired. So some
Holy.
crazy stuff is happening. Interesting, right?
Very interesting. Yeah. Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I guess we'll go ahead and move into the frenzy, but I think that we'll have lots of off-season prep to talk about over the next few weeks
Yeah.
because as the next 2 weeks, will some of the we already know some of the teams who are out after this weekend. There'll probably be another couple teams who are out, and hopefully it's not the Bucks. Because anyway, we'll go into faves, and I don't have any football fashion faves for this week just because I couldn't really see much. But I just wanted to say, like, my fashion fave just in life
Yes.
was Gucci in Florence.
Hmm.
I mean, first of all, have you ever seen the movie House of Gucci with Lady Gaga?
I have. Yes.
Okay, isn't that's a fabulous movie? It's very sad because it's based on a true story and the Gucci family really like
Right.
imploded. But when you watch that movie and you hear how they say Gucci, everything is Gucci. Like you can't help but say it that way when you're in Italy. You're like, let's go to Gucci. so we went to the Gucci Museum in Florence, and it was so cool. And I think Ashton will put up a few pictures. There was like the room of iconic handbags, the room of iconic fashion, the room of iconic scarf prints. But in this just ancient building that everything is so old in Italy, and I really just felt like, wow, the history of such an iconic brand, which has had its ups and downs. And all the years that I've been in luxury retail, Gucci has either been the hottest of the hot or the crappiest of the crap, and it's never really been anywhere in the middle.
Okay.
But they've had some really good years, and when you see it and you really can get such an appreciation for the craftsmanship, no matter who was the designer, there's that that craftsmanship that's there. These people take such pride in their work. It's
Right.
it's it's quite impressive. And so then we took Elizabeth to the original Gucci, I should be saying it, Gucci boutique in Florence, and we did buy her first Gucci bag. And uh the luxury fashion experience in Italy is really like nothing else. I mean, I
Mhm.
know, again, I've been in luxury retail my whole life. So I know, what it's like to give a glass of champagne to a customer. But it's just not like that
Right.
original Gucci experience, which is a red velvet on the walls and just just beautiful. And the sales associates or the consultants are so knowledgeable, and they took their time. We were not buying the most expensive bags, certainly, but you did not feel that way. I
Right.
mean, the way they made Elizabeth feel was absolutely incredible. So I just think, I'm just going to throw it out there to Gucci as my fashion fave this week, and probably for a long time coming, because it was just such a great experience. And I didn't get myself a Gucci, but I have a couple anyway. So, but next time I go back, maybe. Yeah. So
Well,
those were that was my fashion fave.
but Kim, here's my thing and it's a question more than anything, is just because I know, not personally, I've been told when you buy luxury bags like that, or luxury, if it's a scarf, maybe it's a trunk, whatever it is, those things are supposed to last you a generation, and then you give it to your kids, who gives it to their kids, right? And so
Yeah.
when the new fashions and the new styles come on, how are you supposed to mix and match, and you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
I feel like that's what's so cool about brands like Gucci. You look at I remember the first time I ever saw a Gucci bag with the GGs, and I just was like, I'm not loving that. I just
okay.
felt like it's kind of a weird color. It's
Yeah.
like that brown and khaki, and I wasn't understanding. But then I started realizing it's the Italians are all about personal style. They're not about trends.
Hmm.
That's an American thing.
Okay.
Italian fashion, and I'm going to probably say French fashion as well, it's about personal style and craftsmanship,
Right.
at least with the high end designers and houses. You see these women in Italy walking around and probably wearing like Zara. Zara was very busy. Every time we walked by a Zara, it was always busy. But then these women have these fabulous crossbody bags, whether it's a Gucci or a Prada, or just a leather beautiful Italian made bag. The style, it's just the way you put it together, and it's unexpected, and it's subtle touches. So that's what I think is so amazing about that. And Elizabeth, like, she slept with that bag.
Did she really?
I woke up, I looked at her, and the bag was right next to her. I'm like, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen. She's so proud of it. So
Yeah.
I think back, excuse me, to my years in luxury retail, and when people came in and they did make that first purchase, like, you could really understand, like, that's and it made me really think about, wow, I wish we had more of a selling ceremony for those brands in
Right.
our store, you know
Right.
um because it is, it's the whole experience, that as a young person, when you're getting your first, you think she'll ever forget that, and that bag will last her forever. I might borrow it a few times
Right.
when she's around. um but it's personal style versus trend
Gotcha.
is what I would call.
Yeah.
So that's my fashion fave. My football fave was, I missed 2 weeks of football, which was really crazy, for me. But the first Sunday when the Bucks beat the Chargers, sorry,
Yeah.
Vaughn. Um, I was so, I wanted to watch, I kept waking up. We were so tired, because that was like, we were only been there 2 days, or anyway, I was tired. I kept checking my phone, and then I checked my phone. I'm like, oh my God, they won. Not only did they win, they won.
Yes.
So I sent you that video of me having my first espresso of my life was the day after that game, because I'd been checking so frequently, and I was so tired because it ended at, like, I don't know, 1 in the morning or
Right.
something. 2 in the morning, and so I had to go down the espresso route just to function. But that was my football favorite. I wish I could have seen that game, because it looked great, and I felt bad that it was against the Chargers, but you know
Hey, it happens.
what, it happens any given Sunday, as you have
Exactly.
shared.
That's so true. That is so
What
true.
were your faves?
My fave was the Christmas game. What happened? The way Lamar Jackson played. All the talk mid-season and from mid-season on was about Lamar being the fave for the front runner for the MVP, and then all of a sudden here comes Josh Allen, and he strings together three or four games where he just played out of his mind, and now the chatter switches, the Vegas odds switch, and then all of a sudden here comes Lamar roaring back, and so it reminds me of that old McDonald's commercial with Jordan and Bird, where they're trying to
Yeah.
outdo each other with the shots they're taking. And so now it's Josh Allen's turn to because although the running backs are having great year, Saquon Barkley is having a great year. I just, quarterbacks, he just so much is expected of them. And I think it's going to be a quarterback again this year. And so now it's Josh Allen's turn. And of course, they're not specifically like, oh, what did Lamar do? Or, oh, I'm trying to go out here to do so much so I can win. That's not it. It's just like, hey, I'm trying to propel my team and keep our momentum going. And so I want to be excellent. And so I just excited to see what he does this week and see how it wraps up, right? Because
You
it's
know
a
what?
regular
You know what?
season award.
One of the coolest things about Lamar during that game was when they pulled him at the end because the game was well in hand,
Right.
and he was so excited for the backup quarterback when he was
Yes.
making plays. He was
Yes.
like, I mean, he has this joy. You can see it when he plays. Like he loves playing the game, and
Yeah.
he's got to be a great teammate. And I hope he wins the MVP. I mean, I think he's been outstanding, but we'll see.
He really have. They both have. They both had. I mean, in the running backs too. They're like it's a four-way race, but it's really those two. And yeah, they've been excellent. So that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
cool to have that guy driving you to be better, even though if you're not consciously thinking about it. I'm sure in quiet moments maybe they allow themselves a few minutes to be, oh, I want to do well, I want to outdo this guy, but it's just pretty cool to see it happen. So that was my fave for this week.
Yeah. Well, it's a good one. So frustration, then my frustration goes to the next Bucks game where they lost to Dallas. And I will go back and I will say, first of all, it's freaking Dallas. And as we have spent a lot of time discussing Dallas on
Yes.
this podcast. So I was just so annoyed to see that loss. But it also goes, I'm just going to say once again, I am being proven right that we do not play well in prime time. So I just think we need 1 o'clock games from here on out. And particularly at the beginning of the season when it's really hot in Tampa, 1 o'clock games, bring those East Coast guys in here. Like when we beat Philadelphia, bring them in. Let's
Yep.
heat them up.
Yep.
But when we play on a primetime game, we are terrible. And I mean, didn't get to watch that game. We were beat by Cooper Rush. So you must have been like laughing your head off at that one.
uh well, so that is actually my flop, is that we can finally put the nail in the coffin for the Cowboys this season. And it's so funny because, okay, look, they granted their last five, they've won four of the games with Cooper Rush, who statistically I think he's thrown 11 touchdowns, 3 picks, and Dak had thrown in his 8 games 11 touchdowns and 8 picks. So now there's some talk about, no one's saying he's a bad quarterback, but if he's not that much better against the guy he's replacing, then like, why are we paying him $60 million? And like, Dallas has a problem. Put it that way, they really do. But it's funny how the talk has turned, and they're now everyone's saying, "Oh, should they keep McCarthy? Should they sign McCarthy to?" And I hope it all works out that way. I hope they re-sign McCarthy. I hope they do. And it's all going to be, we're going to be here. Everyone's going to go into it. Oh, Dallas is one of the most talented, and we're going to be right here at the end of next season. So I love it. I absolutely love it, even though it's my flop.
Well, I do, we can talk about this next week or after season, but I would be very interested, very intrigued to see what Dak Prescott could do on another team. Now, the problem is he just signed that contract. I mean, no one's going to want that to pick up
No,
that kind of,
no.
there no one. But I feel like if he was in a team on a team that was not dysfunctional,
Hmm.
I feel like he'd be a different guy. But we'll table that till postseason because that'll give us something to
Yeah,
dig into.
yeah. But
Um,
culture matters,
did-
right?
Absolutely, culture matters. We know that for sure. I mean, you can see, where there is no culture, Chicago, right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few places. But okay, so what was your frustration? Your
Okay,
flop was the Cowboys
it's a bit of a
or the Bucks
stretch.
losing.
It's a bit of a stretch. It's somewhat related in terms of America's team. And I guess they're kind of professional with NIL now, but my frustration is Notre Dame. Now, I don't I don't care enough about Notre Dame to really hate Notre Dame. I just hate. It's one of those. I guess it's don't hate the player, hate the game type of thing. I hate that they don't necessarily play the toughest of schedules. They always play a couple of the service academies, right? Which, I mean, not the toughest games in the world for them.
Right. Right.
So they have a ready-made path to the playoff, to the championship. In the first round of the playoffs, they play Indiana, who everyone knew was a fraud, and now they're on the precipice of being in the championship game. All they have to do is get lucky once, and it just completely reminds me of 2012. Notre Dame goes 12-0, and it's again America's college for some odd reason. I'm not exactly sure why. I wasn't around in the 40s to know what how that became a thing, but they're America's college, and everyone loves Notre Dame. They're 12-0, and everyone knew there's no way they're as good as Alabama. Alabama blew their doors off. And I just think, and it doesn't matter. Notre Dame could play 11 service academies. I don't know that we have 11 service academies, but they could play 11
We
service
don't.
academies. And if they go undefeated, they're going to the playoff. They're going to the championship. And it's just frustrating. And again, I don't hate Notre Dame. It's frustrating that they have that kind of built in advantage. So,
Yeah, yeah. I can see that. But yeah, and I don't get it. I really don't get it either. But before I move on to my flop, I will say I sent you that picture that Dylan got a card
yes,
from Coach Belichick at
yes, very cool.
UNC.
Very cool.
So there's a lot of a lot of stuff going on there now. So that's pretty interesting. He likes Notre Dame. I mean, he liked his visit to Notre Dame, but I'm not. I don't know. I isn't that what didn't that guy Newt Rockne? Is that a real
Yeah,
person? Did he
yeah.
play
New
there?
Rockne.
Okay,
Yeah.
is that like maybe
Um,
that's why Notre Dame is so popular?
oh, they have a ton of lore, a ton of history. And look, Notre Dame, my sophomore year of high school, that was my first ever college letter. And it had that gold embossed helmet on the outside. My athletic director handed me the letters like, hey, what do these guys want? I looked, I'm like, oh, trust me,
Ooh.
when you get it, you as a player, you are like geek because it's Notre Dame, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
I do
but
like their helmets. I
yes,
do.
yeah, touchdown Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Play like a champion today. Like they got a lot of good, great stuff going for him. So like he could do a lot worse than Notre Dame.
For sure.
Yeah,
Well, my flop, I have two flops. One was just the bad games. Like, I was excited to have football on Christmas and then that Houston game. I mean, that was just a bad game. Like
yeah.
it was bad. And then last night's game was bad. I hate really bad games, but it is what it is. But my bigger flop was so Netflix, I mean, it wasn't terrible because there was a few glitchy things later in that Baltimore game. But what I really thought was a flop and just stupid were those jackets that they made. I guess Mahomes and Kelsey put on the jackets and then Derrick
Derrick
Henry
Henry,
and
yeah.
Lamar. But then what was really sad and awkward was poor Jamie Erdahl
The
was supposed to
cake.
give him that cake.
The cake.
Well, first of all, we all know Derrick Henry doesn't eat shit like that. Excuse
Right.
my language because we are a clean podcast. But he doesn't eat cake.
Yes.
He eats avocado.
Yeah.
He's kind of like Tom Brady in that way. But she was on, I watched a little bit of Good Morning Football this morning and she was talking about that. She's like, it was so embarrassing. And she had to put her fingers in the cake to break it apart
Right.
and like they weren't taking it, so she ate it. But I mean, so Netflix, I guess, was trying to put their stamp on it. I guess, like the
Yes.
turkey legs or
Yes,
whatever.
exactly.
I feel like there was probably a better idea.
Well, and honestly, I think she could have helped herself when they gave her the first no. I'm gonna let it go.
Just stop.
I'll
Yeah.
eat the cake. Like she didn't anticipate they were gonna say no. Like she should have already gone through that process. And like, what if they say no? Like, but I know she's thinking, who's gonna say no to red velvet cake?
Right. Well, she was talking about they had the production meeting the day before, and they were telling her, "You gotta they have to eat this cake. You
Oh,
have to
really?
make sure they." Yeah, and she's like, "Why?"
Right? Yeah. Right. Oh, wow.
So I mean, that was a flop. Although I was happy that they didn't have any major issues,
Yeah.
but Netflix is in the game now, so we'll see what
That's
happens.
exactly what I was just about to say. The NFL is so good at just tease everybody a little bit. Oh, you like this, and so next year
Mhm.
it'll be Amazon, Tubi will be
Oh
trying to
yeah.
get in the game, HBO
Yep.
Max will be trying.
Yep.
So smart.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, so we'll wrap it up. This weekend, I'm so excited. I love when there's Saturday football. 3 games on Saturday, football Sunday. I mean, this is it. Like this is a big weekend.
Let's
This is
all
a
say
big
a prayer
weekend.
for the NBA. The NFL has
Yeah,
completely taken over Christmas
yeah,
from the
yeah,
NBA.
yeah. Well, I'm okay with that because post Michael Jordan, I could care less about the
Yeah.
NBA. I've tried. I just
Yeah,
but
I haven't watched since I was a kid, so
yeah, it's just not the same. So we'll have a lot to discuss next week. And
yes.
please, everyone, please root for the Bucks to win. And please root for the Commanders not to slack off and lose to Atlanta. That's we need. We need Atlanta to lose the next two, and we need to win the next two. So please, everybody, please send good vibes.
Okie doke.
And I hope everybody has a very safe and happy New Year's Eve. And I hope everybody had a lovely Christmas. And I hope everyone who's celebrating Hanukkah is having a wonderful, peaceful time. And Vaughn, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good seeing you.
And
Glad you're back.
Ashton, I'm glad you had a good Christmas. So we will reconvene next week and be ready for the last week of the NFL season.
Wow. I know. All right, guys.
How
See
did
you
that go
later.
so
I
fast?
know, right?
All right, guys,
Okay,
everybody, please like us, follow us, subscribe. But first, football. Peace.
bye.